Alright, hello everyone. I'm back and we're going to talk about the the DNA passage. It was actually really exciting when I took it because to me it marked a transition for the SAT and being more humanities based to something that is more representative of a wider variety of reading material because I don't know about you guys, but this is actually a really interesting type of passage that isn't too complex in the science, but I'm sure it drove a lot of people very crazy because, you see these graphs of adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine, and you're like, oh my god, what is this? I am not a science major, I don't know biology. And really, it doesn't come down to knowing biology. It still comes down to being able to read the passage, understand what's being said, and then being able to use the passage to interpret the graphic that they give. Um, but it does introduce certain scientific concepts that you need to be critical in understanding. Again, it doesn't come down to having prior knowledge, which is what some of you may have thought. In reality, it comes down to, can you understand this passage? Can you interpret the passage to interpret this graph, to interpret some of the questions? Alright, so let's get started after that little spiel. So number 22, the author uses the word okay, so hold on, actually let me get my little brief synopsis. This is basically about the discovery of DNA and some propositions as to what the structure might be. It's by Watson and Crick, which if you take bio or genetics, you're going to hear a lot of. And it's actually really awesome. So number 22, the word backbone in lines 3 and 39 indicate that. So line 3, the backbone, this word, and 39, which is 39, backbone. And the answer choice really stuck out when you see regular alternation of sugar and phosphate groups. So there's an alternating pattern, really. So the only answer that reflects that is B, the main structure of a chain. And a DNA molecule is composed of repeating units. So repeating, in terms of the backbone, it's repeating sugar and phosphate groups, which is actually true. When you look at DNA, you see that there's a phosphate group, 3 of them, and then you attach it to the sugar backbone at the, what is it? The, oh man, 3' end of the glucose, of the deoxyribose. Yeah, that's bio for you guys. So 23, a student claims that nitrogenous bases pair randomly with one another. Did he read the passage? So which statements in the passage contradict this? So this one comes down to just looking at the answer choices and seeing which makes the most contradictory sense. So if we look, it's actually lines 27 through 29. It says one member of a pair must be a purine and the other a pyrimidine. So obviously it's not just a purine and a purine or a pyrimidine and a pyrimidine. It has to be a purine and a pyrimidine for it to work. And you'll see later that it actually has to be one specific purine to one specific pyrimidine. So D is it because it shows that it's not just random pairing. 24. In the second paragraph, what do the authors claim to be a feature of biological interest? So again, it just comes down to going to the passage and saying and reading. The other biologically important feature is this is the third paragraph. The first feature of our structure, which is of biological interest, is that it consists not of one chain, but of 2. So literally just reading it off and saying, oh, it consists of 2 chains. So D. Number 25. The author's main purpose of including the information about X-ray evidence and density is to, so again, find where it's talking about density and X-ray and saying, oh, look, the density taken with the X-ray evidence suggests very strongly that there are 2, and which he's talking about 2 chains, because earlier he's talking about it has often been assumed that since there was only one chain in the chemical formula, there would only be one in the structural unit. But he's saying no, the DNA and X-ray, the density and X-ray evidence show that there are in fact 2 units of chains. So the number of chains in a molecule. Alright, number 26. Based on the passage, the author's statement, if a pair consisted of 2 purines, for example, there would not be room for it, implies that a pair. So actually, this question was really hard for me because I have a lot of prior knowledge on the subject. So I had to get rid of all that and just literally use based on the passage. So don't use your prior knowledge, bro. And basically see that the answer choice is B, because a pair of purines would be larger than a pair consisting of a purine and pyrimidine. And why can we assume that? Because basically, let's imagine you have a finite space. So you have, say, 10 centimeters of space. If a pair consisted of 2 purines, there would not be enough room for it, meaning that the 2 purines are larger than the 10 centimeter space that you have. However, if you have a purine and a pyrimidine, then it does fit. So meaning that it must be less than 10 centimeters, meaning, again by extension, that the pair of purines being larger than 10 centimeters is larger than the pyrimidine and the purine, which is less than 10 centimeters. So just think about it purely in terms of what they're giving you. They're saying that a purine and a purine, a pyrimidine and a pyrimidine can't match up because there just wouldn't be enough room. If there were enough room, then you know you're talking about a purine and pyrimidine. And if there isn't enough room in one case and there is enough room in the other case, then you know that one is bigger than the other. So number 27, the author's use of the word exact, specific, and complement in lines 47 and 49 in the final paragraph. So if the actual order of the bases on one of the pairs were given, one can write down the exact order on the other chain because of the specific pairing. So he's really just trying to emphasize that there is, I guess, order to the madness that is DNA, and it's because of the specific and exact pairing. Importantly, you have to read the next little sentence, which says this is a feature which suggests a manner by which the DNA could replicate itself. So you have to, one, understand that there are 2 chains, and one of them can serve, and that one of them can serve as a template for another one during D-deoxyribo N-nucleic A acids of DNA. Okay, so number 28. Based on the table and passage, which choice gives the correct percentages of purines in yeast DNA? Alright, so first, find yeast. So yeast is right. Can I highlight yeast? Okay, so I can't highlight. Okay, so yeast. Next, find where he talks about purines and pyrimidines. So 2 of the possible bases, adenine and guanine, are purines. So we now know, okay, adenine and guanines are the ones that they're asking about because it's asking about purines. Okay, next, look at where adenine and guanine are in the table. So you have 31.3 in, so specifically for yeast, you have 31.3% adenine and 18.7% guanine. So we look for that and we see, oh, 31.3 and 18.7. What do you know it? C is the correct answer. 29. So don't be afraid by these graphs. They give you the information in the passage to understand what purines are. They tell you what purines are here. You look for yeast specifically. It's asking for yeast. And you go down to adenine and guanine, which you know are the purines. Alright. So do the table and do the data in the table support the author's proposed pairing of bases in DNA? So you have to think about it. What did they propose? They proposed that a purine and a pyrimidine always have to match up. So what do? You say, okay, doesn't make sense. Adenine, and so we look at for what a purine is adenine, and you look at the pyrimidines, which are cytosine and thymine, and you say, adenine doesn't really match up with the pyrimidine cytosine. They don't have the same amount of bases. But what do you know it does match up with thymine. They have both about roughly 32%. And you say, let me think about it a little further. Guanine, in terms of, so let's look at yeast again specifically. You say, guanine doesn't really match up with thymine, the purine and the pyrimidine, but it does match up very nicely with cytosine, both of them having about 18%. Now again, they're trying to throw you off because it's not exact, and the reality is that they're not exact, but they're pretty darn close. And so you're looking for a yes, and then because for each given organism, the percentage of adenine is closest to the percentage of thymine, which we already discussed, and the percentage of guanine is closest to that of the percentage of cytosine. Again, what we discussed. And remember, adenine is the purine, and thymine is the pyrimidine in this case. Guanine is the purine, and cytosine is the pyrimidine. Alright? Alright, so number 30. According to the table, which of the following pairs of base percentages in sea urchin provides evidence to support previous answer? Alright, so you look for the sea urchin, and you say, you have to look for two answers that are pretty similar, or else the previous answer wouldn't have made sense. Alright, so we're looking for two answers that are similar, and the only answers that do that are 17.3 and 17.7. And we go back and we look, okay, 17.7 is for guanine, and again, guanine is going to match up with the pyrimidine, cytosine, and they are pretty close in value. So that provides support for the last answer. And last question, last but not least, I think, yeah. Alright, last before we head off to school. I don't know what you guys are doing right now. Based on the table, is the percentage of adenine in each organism's DNA the same, or does it vary? And which statement made by the authors is most consistent with the data? So we look at the table and we see, adenine in all of these cases is pretty different. Guanine in all of these cases is pretty different. Cytosine and thymine, again, all of these values are pretty different as you move down from one organism to the next. That means that the percentage of adenine specifically is actually pretty different. For example, you have 26.8 in one of them, and you have 32.8 in another. That's a pretty big difference. So you're looking for an answer that says it varies. Then you have to think about, okay, what line can we use to actually support that answer? And if you look up here, 41 through 45 give a pretty good answer. So he says, it follows that in a long molecule, many different permutations. And so permutations is just a fancy mathematical word of saying there are different ways in which you can order these molecules. And there are more than one way, basically, since there's more than one amount of a particular unit, then that would mean that there's many different possibilities in which you can have a unit of DNA. So DNA just represents the two chains of, of the repeated units. And there's many different possibilities of having that repeated unit, and so that makes the most sense. 36 and 38 don't actually answer the question. 36, adenine, for example, can occur on the other chain, but when it does, its partner on the other chain must always be thymine. That really just reflects the pairing rules. Okay, so let's think about it. Let's have an overview picture one more time. I don't know, I hope you guys didn't get stressed over this passage, because as you could see, this was actually a pretty generous passage if you don't panic about it. Every answer had a very particular line reference that answered the question, and you have to understand the SAT has to do this. If you didn't take this science, or if you didn't take biology, and this isn't a biology section, like it's not testing your knowledge in biology, then they have to give you the information, or else it just wouldn't be fair to you. It wouldn't adequately represent you as a student. Alright? So don't panic. Bye-bye.